Wolf Girl Chapter 11. Wolf Girl 4 Chapter 11. Sunrise slunk closer to the fence. Her head hung low and walked towards me. It was weird being so close to a dear friend but feeling like we were strangers. I put my hand up to the fence and she lifted her snout. "Why didn't you tell me where you were going?" I said. "I didn't know where the trail would lead." "None of us do." I gestured to where the others were hiding in the bushes. "We don't know much of anything, except, I hope, that we can rely on each other." Sunrise managed to look apologetic, dropping her gaze and wrinkling her brow. I nodded towards the kennels. "You've found your family?" Her tail gave a little wag. "Yes." "You know they're helping the people who stole my family." I couldn't help it. I was angry. "Do you really want to be an attack dog for the enemy?" Sunrise looked so confused I instantly felt guilty. What right did I have to keep her from her parents when that was all I wanted for myself? "I'm sorry," I said. "I know you had to come. I just can't believe you would choose this life, that you would choose a collar." She surprised me by giving a little growl. "That's what I have to figure out." She looked over at the kennels wistfully. "Sunrise," I said, "you can stay here if that's what you really want, but I am going to need my shawl back. Do you know where it is?" She finally met my eye. "Yes." "Can you show me the way in?" She only hesitated for a moment. Perhaps she knew she owed me this, at least. "This way." Sunrise led me along to a solitary bush that grew on both sides of the fence. "You dug this to get in?" I said. "Yes." I considered the hole and the grounds beyond the fence with apprehension. I had been in tight situations before, but somehow this one scared me the most. There wasn't any cover between the hole and the house, and a pack of wolves slumbered nearby. "Hey," said Rupert, startling me. Either I had been distracted or he was getting better at sneaking about. "What is it?" "I'm coming with you." "You should stay here with the others," I said. Having to watch out for Rupert would just make things more difficult. "Gwen, this whole place is about communications, which means there will be all kinds of computers in there." He arched an eyebrow at me. "Are you good with computers?" I scowled in reply. "I could find something that might really help us," he said. "What if there are records about our parents?" I had to admit that he had a point. "Okay," I said, "but stay close and be quiet and try not to smell too appetizing to wolves." He gave a low chuckle, which relieved the tension a bit, for a second. Then I turned back to the hole. "We go through," I said. As I brushed the dirt off, Sunrise stared at me strangely. My instinct was to hug her, but it seemed as if neither one of us was sure about the other. In the end, she simply turned and padded off towards the house. She took us to a side door, which also had a dog door in it. Sunrise nudged her way through, and I caught it as it swung back so it wouldn't bang shut. I went down on my knees and pushed through after her, trying not to squeak the hinges. I held it open for Rupert as he followed us. We were in a dark corridor with plush carpet and paintings on the walls. The place held an odd mixture of scents, wolves and people, old stuff and new tech. Of the many doorways ahead, most were dark, but a couple had light spilling from them. From inside one, I could hear the clicking of keyboards and an occasional voice. Although some of the mansion's original furnishings remained, many rooms were filled with desks and technical equipment. I wondered what had happened to the people who had lived here. Were they some rich family, thrown out? Or worse, when the enemy had invaded? In the entrance hall, I eyed the dog door warily, worried to see it lift. Sunrise sniffed the air, but gave no alarm. An ornate staircase headed up to the second floor, where a corridor was lit by soft lantern light. "We have to go up," said Sunrise. "Okay." There was no carpet on the stairs, and Sunrise's claws on the polished wood sounded like thunder to me. Click, click, click. When we were halfway up the stairs, we heard footsteps approaching along the upper corridor. There was no time to run. "Down!" I hissed. Stone's voice sounded above. He was alone, so I guessed he must have been talking on the radio. "If you're having trouble controlling your people," he said, "just manufacture a little inspiration." He paused by the top of the stairs. If he was heading down, we were as good as found. "Today, for example," Stone continued, "I left the door to a prisoner's cell unlocked. Gave me a chance to test a new wolf and keep the soldiers on their toes." I held my breath. What if the lantern light glinted off my eyes and gave me away? I very slowly turned my head away from Stone. Rupert's face stared up from the next step. Even in the dark, I could tell he was pale. Stone laughed. "I even blamed them for it, so you can be sure they'll be double checking all the doors from here on in. These are the kind of tricks you should employ in your new command." He turned and walked off down the corridor. I slowly let out my breath. As his footsteps grew quieter, Sunrise rose. "We go on?" "We go on," I whispered. We got to our feet and moved to the top of the stairs. Thankfully, Sunrise led us in the opposite direction from where Stone had gone. I hoped he'd been just getting in some boasting on his way to bed. Sunrise stopped outside a big oak door with no light coming from inside and placed a paw on the dog door. "In here." We crawled through into what looked like some kind of study, with bookshelves lining the walls, but also, on the desk, the moonlight through the window found hard edges and glints of tech equipment. Behind me, a light flicked on, and I spun round in fear, only to see Rupert standing by a lamp. "What?" he said. "We need to see." Rupert went to a computer and switched it on. Dong! The noise it made powering up seemed loud enough to wake the whole house. "Rupert! I can't get info from a computer that's turned off," he said. Sunrise moved to the big desk and rose up on her hind legs. She tugged something off it, then came back to me. "Thank you," I forced myself to say as I took the shawl from her. "I'm going to need a minute or two," said Rupert as he tapped away. "Oh, my goodness." "What?" "I've found a schedule for the trucks we've been chasing." Suddenly I was willing to give Rupert all the time he needed. "I'll send it to print," he said. "We can look at it properly later." He clicked the button and a printer in the corner started spitting out pages. "Okay," as soon as that's done, we will. And that's the end of the chapter. The next chapter is called A Difficult Choice. Looks like